15, a regularly scheduled meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Trustees. Roll call, please.
Trustee Brian Swanson?
Here.
Trustee Rivera?
Here.
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 Assistant Superintendent.
Okay, great. We have a quorum. I think we've all had a chance to take a look at the agenda. Any questions or changes that we need to take a look at?
Yes, Mr. President, I just want to remind everyone that we did add another item to closed session, which is a consideration of student discipline, one case that was added to the agenda. I believe it was a day ago as an emergency item since it just had come up. And so it was also sent out to public and it is on the website. So.
Anybody have anything else? All right. All right. I don't think we need to ask for public comment on this yet, do we, for the agenda?
You can ask.
Or do we have public comment? And I don't see any public. All right. Nobody online. All right. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. We have a motion from Dr. Rivera, a second from Carolyn Swanson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Agenda. Yeah. All right. Gotcha, Carolyn. Thank you. It has been adopted. We're moving on to closed session. I will identify the closed session topics, which are negotiations, collective bargaining, planning and prep for PGTA, also negotiation, collective bargaining session, planning and prep for CSEA. Third item, public employee discipline dismissal release complaint 2 cases. And the fourth item, consideration of student discipline. Do we have any public comment on closed session items? None online, none in the audience. Board, anything? Okay, I believe we can convene to closed session. Okay, we are reconvening this board meeting. After coming out of open session, I want to report on what happened back there. Information was given as to negotiations on collective bargaining sessions with PGTA. Information also given on item number 2, collective bargaining session with CSEA. Public employee dismissal, discipline, release complaint. We had 2 cases. I'm going to come back to that. And we had, although I don't see it on this one, student discipline item as well, and information was given on that. So I think for a lot of the people that are watching tonight, they're wondering about one of these cases and the information that was given. And a new investigation has been launched, and the board and administration take this very, very seriously. There's not a lot of information that we're able to share at this time as it's ongoing. But I do want everybody to know that we take it very, very seriously. And as more information is available, we will share what we're able to share. So there will be more as we move into communications and comment, but can we step up for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Frank, could you lead us, please? Thank you, Frank. Okay, moving on to communications, written communication. I saw a letter concerning inclement weather relating to our lunch program, another relating to testing and tracking, 1 in support of a PGUSD teacher, and 5, again, concerning the item that I brought up before. Frank, do you have any others?
No, I received the same.
Okay. Carolyn, anything new from you?
Yeah, I had one from a community member with concerns regarding safety at all the schools and the police department. I had a media inquiry regarding a personnel discipline matter, and I had an email from a parent regarding COVID mitigation strategies at lunchtime.
Thank you very much. So let's move on to board member comments. I think, again, I'll start with this. How many people do we have watching right now? Okay, so we have a lot of people that we've seen some letters, a lot of comment in the community about what's happening, a lot of concern. Over the years, I know as a board member, we've had situations that have come up and they can be really tricky because when they involve students and minors and when they involve whether it's ongoing litigation or employees, some of this information, you can't just roll it out as it comes in. Information changes. As the district first started to look into this, once the DA and the police stepped in, the district had to pause what they were doing. So I think a lot of people thought that the district may not have been doing anything at all. In fact, the district was letting the DA and the police do what they needed to do. So it's difficult to share that information, but I wanted to stress again that district and the board take very seriously the safety of the students and the safety of the community when it comes to these things. So that's all I've got to say about it. Frank?
Just one more bit on that, and then I want to switch on to something else. I just want to emphasize that the district has to pause so as not to interfere. And then on to other things. I like to take these moments whenever possible to brag about our wonderful community. And last week I had a great opportunity. I visited Miss Cafarata's class over at Robert Down. There was the ELAC meeting, English Language Advisory Committee. And it was just it was a wonderful meeting with the parents of English learners, the parents, and we opened up with an icebreaker. I actually have my notes on the back of the icebreaker, and we had to walk around and find someone that has the same hobby or interest. And I actually had the pleasure of running into Director Silva, who was there, and we both like music. So we got that one down together. But anyways, the purpose of this exercise was to help parents understand how their children felt in school. Learning to read and write in a foreign language, feeling uncomfortable talking with people, and making requests. So it was a wonderful icebreaker. Then she continued on talking to the parents, calling the parents out by name, asking them about their children, calling their children out by name. So I thought that was wonderful. She let them know that she cared about their children. She knew their children by name. Then we went on, and she really emphasized that it was important to continue to read to her children in their native language. And I was surprised by this, but then it made sense. She says that they should continue to read in their native language because this helps maintain and develop their cultural identity. And in a time when we're trying to celebrate diversity, this is very important. So as these people come into our district, into our country, we're not trying to erase their past. We're trying to celebrate it. And we're asking them to bring that in and help us learn and celebrate their culture with them. So I thought that was just a wonderful opportunity. And then we did a gallery walk where she asked what was working for your child and what isn't working for your child. So I just want to highlight my experience. I thought it was a wonderful meeting. I know that there are 3 meetings scheduled for this year, and I have a feeling there might be a 4th. So just bravo to Miss Cafarata for her work with the ELAC program.
Great. Thank you very much. Trustee Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you, Clerk Brian. Let's see. So I looked up our COVID transmission level for today. We're in the substantial tier, which is the, actually, no, I think we're in the moderate tier, excuse me, which is the 2nd out of 4 seriousness of transmission. Which leads me to think about the pool testing possibility in our district. And I know that CDPH has reaffirmed some of their guidance for screening testing. And so I'm hoping that we can talk about that more during our COVID update later in the program. I guess our board meeting is kind of like a program. And then I'm actually really looking forward to this weekend. I've got a chat scheduled with some students who have reached out to me and want to chat, and I'm more than happy to listen. So anytime students, community members, family members want to reach out to any board member, I hope that you do, and I hope you feel invited to do so. Our information, our contact information is on our website. And then, yeah, just a little bit about the employee discipline issue. If you do have any information regarding that, please do email Dr. Porus or our HR director, Billy Mankey. We want to hear from you. So those are my comments tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Student representative, and I'm sorry, Lupita, I did not get your last name. Awesome. All right, go ahead. If you have something you want to share. Oh, okay, all right. I did want to add one other thing or a couple other things. First of all, I hope everybody had a really great break. Awesome, yeah, it was great. I caught the tiniest little fish. Well, it was an anchovy, so you can still keep it. I wanted to thank all the heads of the sites though too, because when I came back, like the emails started coming in again, you know, from Sean and Buck and Lido. And I love the consistency that those come in. It's just great to see them constantly bouncing in and seeing all the activity. I'm wondering, Sean Roach, what the plan is for movie night if it's raining. I think it's gonna rain, and isn't that tomorrow night? Saturday night, okay. Okay, all right. And I was heartened to see when I looked again up this morning on our little COVID dashboard that we don't seem to have any active cases at the moment. So knock wood on that. So that's all from me. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep it relatively brief, but first off, I want to thank PGMS and Principal Roach in particular for welcoming me to the site, as well as Director Mankey and Assistant Superintendent Jim Bendib. We had a chance to do the second site visit, the kind of formalized visit, and what a wonderful trip that was. The teachers were remarkable, and I think just a couple of pieces that I thought were particularly brilliant. Number one was just the enthusiasm that every single teacher there had, working with, you know, probably some of the toughest age children in the district. Middle school is just hard, and just the amazing welcome that the teachers provided their students. The other piece was that I found really wonderful and excellent was that as I went across different classrooms in disciplines. So for example, I went from one math classroom, 7th grade, to another 7th grade math classroom. Similar instruction, similar instructional strategies. In fact, in some cases, the exact same lessons were being taught. And it was just wonderful to see. That consistency is always amazingly helpful for the students and the teachers, I think. And it was the same for many of the other disciplines as well. And it's clear that the teachers are collaborating, planning really hard and diligently. And there's a method to the madness, and it just really showed. So please extend my gratitude to the staff. They were just remarkable, and to your leadership, of course, really great. Also had an opportunity this past week, along with Principal Garcia, to visit the Diversify Our Narrative Club at the high school. And just an amazing group, and they are a powerhouse. A lot of fun to watch what was happening. And while we were just visitors, just really felt involved and motivated by the direction the students were going. And they were talking a little bit in part about the work that they want to do with some of the younger students at the elementary, in terms of just being there and supporting them and helping them find their voices and helping them think a little bit about their own lives and how they connect to the world around them. And it was really just amazing to see. And in my eyes, I'm watching the high school kids, and it's really like, well, they're only a few years removed from the elementary. As I get older, it seems even more so. But the leadership that exuded from them was remarkable. So very fun to be a part of that. Last but not least, and I'll leave it at this, continued update in regards to our efforts with equity. We did receive a contract that we will be bringing to the board in November from one of the Praxis Group, who's an educational consultant. They work with equity. You've heard us mention the name before. Dr. Roberto Nunez from here at the Monterey County Office of Education, and Dr. Peter Flores from the agency group, and he's kind of based down in the Buellton area. They are prepared and putting together a really wonderful long-range 3-year plan that will involve professional development with our teachers, that will eventually lead to work with the students and staff directly. Very exciting. And the first effort will be during the February professional development time. And just excited to begin that work with them. In the interim as well, we are still looking to do some work with local agencies, honoring our local heroes and local histories of our across different races. And I think we're kind of finding some of those anchors for us as well and presenting. And one of those was the Village Project in Seaside. Tremendous work happening there. So we're proceeding. I just wanted to share that that's coming forward and onward and upward. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Great, thank you. Moving on to PGUSD staff comments, non-agenda items. Hit your button.
Weird, it's been a while, so I'll do my best. Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School, and I've got a couple of updates for the board. First one is a little bit vague. I'm not allowed to say too much about it, but I can tell you that Pacific Grove Middle School was awarded $30,000 in a grant to cover social emotional counseling 3 days a week for the remainder of the school year. The reason that's important is because we have Sonda Fruden and Zoe Roach who service our kids 2 days a week. But they are very busy ladies. And we have the need at this point. And so this grant will allow us to serve those needs 5 days a week for all of our students for the remainder of the school year, as well as to be funding a lunchtime intervention person. And what that person is we're looking at somebody who's going to kind of take a restorative approach to minor disciplinary details. And instead of just saying, you know, you have detention after school, we want somebody to be able to get to the bottom of the issue and help counsel these students so that they have the tools or the ways to not have to continue to, you know, be late to class or something like that. So we're very excited about that. Next week starts Red Ribbon Week. We have a bunch of things. I can tell you that every student at that school is gunning for the staff. We are looking for many opportunities for them to compete against us athletically. And Red Ribbon Week, for those of you who do not know, is a pledge to remain alcohol and drug free. We take it very seriously. It's a national thing. So we're really looking forward to it, as are the kids. And finally, movie night, 6:30 on the field. Let's hope. The movie that we're going to show is A Nightmare Before Christmas. Lovely one. That's your PGMS update. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sean.
Good to see you again.
Barbara Martinez. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. I just want to really put a push in for our social emotional learning parent series. Our 2 elementary schools and the middle schools have done a fantastic job in reaching their families and providing free social emotional support to her families. And you don't have to attend the first series in order to attend the second one. The second series is going to focus on communication and conflict. And it offers tools to build positive relationships and approaches to communicate to families, and explores ways to heal relationship when conflict arises in the family. And it's very simple to register for these free seminars. You can just, the principals have added this to their newsletters to families, and this will be at the top of the district website as of tomorrow morning. So please, families, join us in this series. It's free to you and it provides you excellent resources for social emotional support for your child. Thank you.
So much, Barbara. Any additional staff comments? Oh, me? On the Zoom? Okay.
Good evening, Annie Silva, Director of Curriculum and Special Projects. I just wanted to share that we have a committee, a Social Studies Adoption Committee, and we are going to be meeting next Wednesday to start the process of looking at materials to adopt for the elementaries. I just want to commend our teachers who have stepped forward to participate in the committee, and that's Denise Johnson and Ann Hober from Robert Down, and Nate Welch, Camelia Miller, and Jennifer Smallwood from Forest Grove. So I really appreciate their time and efforts in doing this. It's a long time coming, and I know that that it's going to be an amazing experience as we choose curriculum that does exemplify the diversity of our community. I also wanted to say that yesterday evening, the company Paper did a parent presentation just for our own school district about the tutoring program that we are offering at the middle and the high school. That was recorded, and so I'm going to put that recording on our website so that other families who were not able to attend last night will be able to see that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Silva. Any other staff comments online? Is that it? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to individuals desiring to address the board. I'm going to read the introduction again. I think it's necessary. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board may limit comments to no more than 3 minutes for each agenda or non-agenda item. A total time for public input on each item is 20 minutes pursuant to board policy 9323. Public comment will also be allowed on each specific action item prior to board action thereon. This meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. Please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place on an item on a future agenda. So, any public comment?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Gonzalez. I'm from CSUMB, and the police are using your school as a place to recruit for the far right. And I know that because the police tortured me and they follow me to places like this. I don't know if you guys heard me walk in. There's a cop waiting for me right outside. And they put me in a situation where, I don't know if any of you are parents, it looks like it's like teachers in here, but like your kids could have died, like easy. And Chief Madelone, she uses corporations, like local businesses and stuff, like my neighbors and all that kind of stuff, and like my landlord. And one day I called 911 in front of your guys' school because I was pissed off and I had to go somewhere to walk somewhere. And they were excited that they were going to find like a body in the woods right in front of the Forest Grove. Oh yeah. So there's the student that took a picture of himself like wearing a Confederate or waving a Confederate flag, and he had a gun. And now last time I was here, you guys said that FedEx lost that paperwork or whatever, or UPS or something like that. Those guys are all like far right guys. If anyone was gonna help them, who's gonna do that? And I'm like one of the shady people from town, so I know the shady people in town. That girl that got touched here, like, how do you know that the reason why they didn't prosecute that guy was because maybe that guy was a member of the hate group? Was it a white guy? I don't even know. But how would you know? That's the far right. That's Chief Madelone and Santos too, specifically. And they do the same shit at CSUMB with Eric Clausen. Like, tried to kill me. Like, I couldn't be here a year ago or whatever because I'll get that threats on my house. So that's the future that Chief Lawson wants for your kids. You can go to school and she's still going to try to put you in prison or kill you because she doesn't like you and because her friends don't like you or whatever. And they're going to use your schools like as a bomb. Because I've seen it and there's footage and they're not going to want to give it to you. So if you want to talk to me or whatever, I'm on Facebook, CSUMB Andrew Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public in the room comment? Move to online. Okay. All right, let's move on to consent agenda. I think everybody had a chance to review. I'm going to read this again too, though. I always think it's interesting. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed as at a previous board meeting. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. Board, any items that you're looking at that you want removed from consent? Members of the public have any concerns, any comments on consent? All right, seeing anything online?
None.
All right, so seeing that, can I get a motion to move forward with consent?
Motion to approve?
Second?
There's a motion to approve from Dr. Rivera, seconded from Carolyn Swanson. I think we're going to see a lot of that tonight. Can we get a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Where are we now? It's my place. Oh no, here we go. Action discussion. Item A, district update on response to COVID-19. Dr. Porus.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not a ton to report at this point. That's new from last week, or the week before. But a couple items that I wanted to talk a little bit about. Trustee Carolyn mentioned this a little bit, and I want to appreciate as well some of the parents who have called me and we've had a discussion. I know Dr. Pelk, for example, when I spoke yesterday and was appreciative of the conversation. As of this morning, well, really yesterday afternoon, I do want to inform the board and the public that our nurse Powley has initiated the process of beginning pool testing for our school district in conjunction with the CDPH. Some of the guidelines that we received both yesterday and this morning have clearly indicated a little bit of a shift in the way that the state is asking us to pursue. Previously, it was the sort of a milder tenor in terms of here are some ways that you can protect and work with your students. At this point, there's an emphasis now in the winter months and looking to be a little bit more directive in regards to pursuing pool testing as a prevention measure. We heard from our county health director and some of the other superintendents yesterday to this issue and got some good information and direction. So I'm just kind of reading a little bit from Nurse Powley's release that she sent the site administrators today. But she's working to initiate pooled COVID-19 testing in conjunction with the antigen rapid testing that we've already established. At this point, there's a process that we need to go through in terms of the application and getting it in place, but that shouldn't take too long. The hope is to identify any positive cases that might emerge to help prevent transmission. As you know, pool testing is almost like spot testing to a certain extent. We're going to focus more than likely on our elementary, since they are the ones that are not vaccinated. Elementary, middle school will probably be the greatest focus, although we will be looking to engage this district-wide. It will involve scheduled testing of entire classrooms whose test samples are pooled together to determine the COVID-19 status of the class. Using the results of that, we'll be able to determine whether or not we need to take any actions with modified quarantine. The state has been very specific that their intent is to keep students in the classroom to the greatest extent possible. So we will continue to pursue our modified quarantine work as we can. Also, she will be working with the principals directly to get that onboarding process moving along. So we should see some action happening pretty soon with that. I'm really pleased about it. And again, I want to appreciate and thank the parents and the community members who have talked to me and have encouraged that. Again, we're very fortunate, as President Swanson just mentioned earlier, our currently active cases are very low. And we are, I think, a lot of credit has to be given to the sites and the work that they're doing with their students to help keep things as safe as possible. And certainly to the parents in the community who are doing their very best to send us their students in a safe manner. So that's awesome to hear, and we'll continue to pursue that. I also wanted to note that the parents in the community should have or will be receiving some information of what the sites will be doing for lunchtime and break time in regards to the rain coming. The sites have been preparing and planning in terms of what that will look like. in the attempt to try to keep kids as safe as possible. As you know, it gets a little trickier when the rain comes. And our sites are all a little bit different. So Forest Grove is an outdoor campus, Robert Down is an indoor campus, middle school, indoor, high school, outdoor. So we're doing the very best we can to make use of facilities that we have to keep kids as safe as possible in this process, but please be on the lookout for those emails and that process so that you can see what the schools are doing in that regards. Also, I'm also pleased to report that Nurse Pally has been continuing to work with the sites in regards to the on-site response testing. So now this is not pool testing, but going back to site-based testing for students that have either are symptomatic or we know are close contacts, or perhaps even a positive report. And we have the capacity through the Binax Now testing to test those students at our campuses. The next step was to recruit volunteers at the sites who would be able to help administer those tests. We are in the process of doing that now. There has been or will be a call for 4 to 5 volunteers per site who are staff members to help administer those tests as needed. That testing will be coordinated by our Nurse Pally as well, as if she doesn't have already a lot going on, but she's taking care of that. There are 3 different kinds of training that are pretty simple and straightforward that will be offered for these volunteers. It's going to take about 3.5 hours to go through that testing, the training for the testing. But once that's on board, we'll be able to have those folks available. In the interim, Nurse Pally still is able to help coordinate those tests if necessary. So it's not that we wouldn't be able to test if we need to responsibly on our sites. So that's good news. And I should reiterate, the rapid antigen testing that we have on our sites in this regard are different than the tests that we would be doing for pool testing with the assistance of the CDPH. Also for the pool testing, I failed to mention, previously I mentioned that in our county, not the state, but in our county, there were not a number of districts that were engaging the pool testing as of, well, at least yesterday, that those numbers are shifting again in the encouragement by the CDPH and the health department. So getting some progress made in that regards. And I also want to mention, we did post on the website, and I believe it was released, at least through the Facebook social media. The CDPH did issue newer guidelines for schools. We did put that onto the site, so any member of the public can go ahead and draw those up and take a look at those at your leisure. The focus on those guidelines are similar to the past: masks, vaccine, and increased testing, especially during these winter months. And to that end, we still have not received any solid word on when we will be able to begin vaccinating our 5-year-olds plus, although it seems that that's coming quick. So we're going to be watchful for that. The state will be working directly with the county to help initiate a release program so that there's a focus on our schools to get those vaccines released as soon as possible. And looking forward to that, and looking forward to that getting offered for our students. That's all I have for the moment, and more than happy to take any questions from the board.
I have 1 or 2, but we can come back to me. Let's first go to Zoom if we can, please, to Trustee Carolyn with any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I've got a couple questions marked off here. I'm so excited about the pool testing to take place. Thank you for mentioning that. You may not know this answer right now, Ralph, but I am curious if you guys are looking at doing the weekly or the twice weekly approach like the CDPH recommends. That's my first question, so I'll give you a chance to answer before I shoot off the other ones.
We are pursuing the weekly at this point based on the numbers that we have. The flexibility to go the bi-weekly is certainly there.
Okay.
But at this point, just in consultation with some of the county folks, it seems appropriate at this point for the weekly.
Okay, thank you for that. And then can you remind me, where are we at on hiring or procuring assistants for Katrina?
Yes, I believe we are very close to finding someone, another health clerk that will be able to assist. I believe we're on the last stages of that, so coming up very quickly.
Okay, I am in full support of that. She has her full-time job and then COVID on top, which I feel like is another full and a half-time job. So once kids have access to the vaccine, I know you mentioned that it's coming for the 5 to 11-year-olds. Do you have any kind of idea of how the safety mitigations might change, like the masking and the the eating outside or whatever. Has there been any talk about what that might look like after our littles are vaccinated?
That's a really great question. And the last time I sat in with the State Superintendent's Council earlier this week, there's not a lot of definitive answers coming just now from the governor, other than just focusing on getting the vaccines distributed first. What we're seeing as the CDPH is going to persist in the guidelines that they currently have, which I think is great. If there are any changes, it probably wouldn't happen until we get closer to, I would say, late winter, early spring. There's just a lot of concern, rightfully so, as we're entering flu season, as well as in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Okay, I think that's really the best we can do, right? Is just kind of keep an eye on that and wait for more info. And then another question about the 5 to 11-year-old vaccines. I've heard that it's possible in some areas that those might be accessible at schools versus, as well as at pediatricians and health clinics and whatever. How are we looking as PGUSD on distributing and vaccinating kids at school sites?
Great question again. It's going to be very similar to the earlier vaccine rollout for employees. We will have to partner with agencies around us who are authorized to distribute the vaccines.
Okay.
We do know that a lot of the emergency response providers have been very helpful. For example, the fire department in being able to help us provide areas and venues for that. So right now, there's not direction in regards to how that's going to look. My guess is going to be Montage will be an excellent partner as they were in the past. And hopefully some of the other emergency response teams will be there. We have already offered and will continue to offer hosting any site, any of our sites as a vaccine center. I'll be happy to do so. And all they need to do is say the word and we'll be there.
And would you be open to, if the rest of the board agrees, maybe reaching out to the CAP RX pharmacy just to give them a little heads up on that? Maybe we can have them come as well.
We've already touched base with all of the Lightspeed, who operates through CAP RX.
Yeah.
And Nurse Pally is all over that. So she's definitely already made contacts to any venue that would be open to doing it once they get authorization. I think we're in a good place for that, for sure.
Awesome. That concludes all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Carolyn. Trustee Dr. Frank.
Yeah, so I had, thank you, Trustee Carolyn. You actually asked a couple of the same questions that I had. But in addition to that, I was going to ask, so the rapid test, just to confirm, is what's going to be used for the pull testing, correct?
The rapid antigen testing is what we're using for our on-site response testing. So if there's a case on site that we need to test, those are the Binax Now rapid tests.
When we do the pull testing, though, will it be using
The PCR test.
the PCR? Okay, cool. That's
my understanding. And if I'm wrong, Nurse Pally will haunt me and correct me quickly, I'm sure.
no, yeah, that's the type of pull testing that I've been reading about. Is
Yes.
the PCR tests.
Yeah, it's more
Okay.
accurate.
Great. And then, so my second question is, will the parents be notified of the testing schedule? But it sounds like if it's being done weekly, then they just know their child. And then my third question would be permission. So do parents need to give permission in order to have their?
Yeah, we'll still have to use the consent form process, which I think we've done a pretty good job with in regards to mobilizing. So I think once we get the process in place, I don't want to speak for it just yet because I don't want to speak out of turn, but we'll make sure that process is in place and proficient and speedy.
Wonderful. And last thing, thank you for volunteering our sites for the vaccination.
All right, thank you. And my questions have now been asked. It'll be interesting to see what the result is as we go to the families and ask permission to test their kids every week. I hope we get a favorable response, an overwhelmingly favorable response. So I'm thrilled that we're doing this. Let's go to general public. Any comment from the general public in the room or on the Zoom? No. Okay, it's a quiet night in Mayberry. Dr. Porus, what do you need from us at this point? Do you need direction to move forward with pool testing, or
No,
is
sir.
this just reporting out?
We're in
We
good
can
unless
move on?
unless there's an objection. This is the time to let me know. But otherwise, we're going to proceed. I think it's It was just, we had spoken about it before, and I remember the board had originally had provided direction not to proceed. But once we got the new guidelines, and once we kind of saw some of the direction that we needed to head, it was just, we decided it needed to move forward that way.
Okay, I think we had favorable response from everybody. Carolyn, you're okay? Okay, right?
Oh, yes, I love this idea.
Okay, great. All right, so moving on, action discussion. Item B, board calendar, future meetings.
Okay. So we do need to have an action on this one. I wanted to note a couple of changes to you. Have your pens ready. The Pacific Grove High School course bulletin presentation was moved to November 18. It's originally scheduled for the 28th and next meeting. The solicitation of funds topic was removed from December 16. This is actually an annual update at the end of the school year. So we will see that come back at the springtime. And then looking into the future, budget revision was moved from March 17 to March 3rd. Those changes are there and available for you. If there's any other changes that the board would like to entertain. Oh, did I read it wrong?
I was having trouble with this.
Well, it was,
prior to.
what I'm reading is budget revision moved to the 17th from March 3rd. Yeah. Oh, did I say it different? I did. Yeah, go figure. That's me. Moved to the 17th from the 3rd. Yeah. I startled my poor assistant superintendent here for a minute.
Okay. Dr. Rivera, any questions or comments from you?
Nope, thank you.
Trustee Carolyn?
Yeah, Ralph, do you think I know that you had mentioned that we're going to do your presentation of the equity plan in November, and there's only one meeting in November. Can we add that to this list, or is it, I don't see it.
I think it's on future agenda, but we can certainly add it to the calendar.
If that's okay with you, I think that'd be wonderful. And then we can kind of push out and let folks know, hey, this is happening November 18th.
Not a problem.
And then, forgive me, this may be a future agenda question, but I know you'll guide me. For the next special board meeting, should we set the date for that now?
Which special board meeting are you referring to?
Yeah, okay, good question. Okay, the one that we added, the 2 future agenda items, the board will receive sample agenda formats to consider potential change in current meeting protocols and media relations, general correspondence, and public comment, those 2 items.
I would suggest that we discuss that at future agenda, since that's where it's agendized, and then we can set a date on that at that time.
And then go back to the calendar. Okay, you
Yeah,
got
wait,
it.
once we have the date, we'll add it to the calendar.
Yeah, okay, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Any public comment on future meetings? Bring it back to the board we do need to vote on this for a motion.
Yes, please.
Also move. Can I get a
I'll
second?
I'll
Okay,
second.
motion from me, seconded by trustee Carolyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, student advisory vote. I'm so rude. Thank you. All right, passes unanimously. And now we can move on. Information discussion. Item A, educational and operational practices learned from COVID-19. I've been thinking about this one a lot. Partly because it's like, what have we learned, or what are we learning, or what do we expect to learn? What has worked, what hasn't worked. I know in my job, I tell this story all the time. Again, if I'd known in March of 2020 that 19 months later, we would still be dealing with this, I think I would have quit. I would have not really seriously. It'd be like, I'm not going to do this for 19 months. The concert business couldn't survive it. Or I thought that it could not have survived it. And I think probably a lot of us would have thought that as well. It's like, there's no way we could do this for 19 months. And now knowing what we're looking at, it's like, this is just our new reality. I hate to say the new normal, but this is where we are, and we're learning how do we live with this. I'm glad that it was doled out slowly, because the other tail would have been too much, at least for me to take. So there's your intro.
That's all right. Thank you and good night. Thank you, Mr. President. This has been an interesting one for us as an administrative team because we engaged this really in the summertime and then with staff early in the year. And our administrative team worked with staff and had this discussion in various ways. Some of it was just professional development, starting the school year with activities, whatever it may be. And it was really more of a reflection activity in some cases. Just let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going well, what's been positive. Let's take a look at last year and bring the good stuff forward, and some things let's just forget. So the context was really more about a discussion with staff around what we're seeing, how are we recovering and how are we moving forward? Obviously, the whole social emotional kind of part of it was key, just as people were trying to figure out what the year's like. We know now, after we just came back from the fall break, that these first 7 or 8 weeks already feel like a year. It's been really, really hard for staff and in general, as it has been for families. It's been a struggle. And I think part of it is just simply that, this is a reminder, right? Our youngest students, this is the life they know. It's like they're wearing masks. They're used to it. The child in my household, he just has it on. Sometimes he's just walking around with a mask on. It's just because it's what it is. So as adults, we're trying to sort of grok how that plays out in relationship to how we work with students, but also how students are relating with one another. So this presentation is not all encompassing. I apologize that we didn't have it when we first put out the board packet, but we were still trying to kind of piece it together, take out some of the repetitive things and really put the real key parts in. We don't have all the answers, and this is not, again, there will be pieces missing. So we certainly hope that folks will help to plug in some of the gaps. And also know, as we go through these items, while it may be just one sentence, one bullet item, almost all of these are just big things, and they have a large impact. And so it might read simple, and it might read, oh, there's only one bullet on that. Well, how one bullet, it just had a lot going on. So please bear in mind that we are still working through a lot of this as we continue forward. I want to thank my amazing assistant, Mandy, for putting this together for me too. And we tried to do is block it into categories. So you'll see that some things may bleed back and forth. We tried not to be repetitive, but these aren't all the end all be all. And these weren't categories that were designed by anyone. It's just how the comments ultimately shook out. If you ever created an affinity tree, it's sort of like, here are the affinity topics. So bear with me as I go through this. I won't spend a lot of time on it. I think a lot of this will probably make sense to you as we go through it. And as you see in the back of the room, we have our panel of experts. I did ask our site administrators to extent possible be here so that they could help fill in some of the gaps on what are actually happening at the sites. So collaboration was one theme that came up, and it came up a lot. And for those of you who have been in the district for a while, this is not a new topic. Whether it's collaboration, as we list here at the beginning, between school sites, which is a big one, right? We've always, as a unified district, when I was here, my very first year, one of the first goals, as Trustee Shimasa would know, was how do we exemplify a unified district, so that our elementaries are doing similar things, so that a student at one site would experience the same kinds of experiences at another site. And that the success or failures of that go up and down. But what we did find during this COVID time was that it was an opportunity to really increase the collaborative work that we've done, especially between the two elementary sites. We saw some incredible work by our staff and our students, planning, executing those plans. I think we learned a lot in regards to the value of that collaboration, especially across grade levels and colleagues talking to each other and working with each other. The opportunity to do that work remotely obviously helped a lot. We found that there was a lot more, a greater level of student collaboration and sharing that was facilitated. Again, partially through the Brady Bunch-esque classes that they had last year on Zoom. Students were really forced to talk with each other, see each other, work with each other. And that as we returned back to the sites, I think the students were thirsty for that collaboration, were thirsty for that contact. And Lupita, you might agree with that, but students wanted to be with each other. And I think the work that the staff did in helping students with that collaboration paid off. So we want to continue that work with students and enhance that. Coordinated prep time for the week was very helpful for the staff. That, as you recall, we had that asynchronous Monday. It was very helpful for everyone to kind of get a grounding in terms of, all right, here we go. You know, what it's sort of the, as Coach Rogan might know, where's the get in the huddle, right? Get in the huddle and let's just get this going. So that prep time was very, very important. I think that also lends itself to the Thursday prep time that are available for our staff, and any opportunity that we can provide our staff to collaborate is helpful. The other piece was the limited a la carte at secondary schools to focus on preparation and improving reimbursable meals. The whole, well, I'll just back up and say the entire process of the meal system for our students, whether it's the summer distribution of meals or how the meal distribution looked at sites and how that changed over the course of 18 months. Director Lip was just phenomenal in the work that she did, and her crew were just amazing. And because it wasn't easy to keep responding, we learned a lot in terms of how that played out for our food. As you know, now the state is, at least for a couple of years, are funding meals for all of our students. And that helped shape the way that we are improving the meal and meal distribution at our sites. Some great lessons learned there. And as you know, kind of Maslow's hierarchy, if our students are hungry and not cared for, they're not ready to learn. And so this was an important piece. In the area of procedures, logistics, the synchronization of schedules between classrooms, grade levels, and schools, we saw a lot of work done there. As I mentioned in the visit at the middle school, I think that may have been a little bit of a payback from that time, where our teachers had to really synchronize the work in order for the work to pay off in Google Classroom and other efforts with our students in Seesaw. And so we're seeing that synchronization continue to pay off, and we want to enhance and work with that. Not that it wasn't there before, but I think it really played out better. As you see, that the grab and go meals for quicker service was that compromise piece, and that was a plus. And we'll continue to work on that. And then the increased use of outside areas to conduct class. We tried to make use as much as we could of our outside areas, like at Forest Grove, for example, the area between the wings. At the high school, the same thing, the area between the wings. You know, Robert Down on the playground area outside the first grade and in the kindergarten classrooms, that whole area just became an outdoor classroom. And I think we're continuing to utilize the area and spaces around us in ways that we had never really thought about. And that continues to work for us, and we'll continue to utilize that. In the areas of safety, the washing hands in, washing hands out protocol is something that I think everyone wants to continue. It's just a great hygiene procedure, but it really, the students got into it, they made it work. And so we'll continue doing that. The increased ventilation systems, the HVAC systems, the air purification systems. Obviously, when we are able, it'll be nice to get the classrooms a little bit warmer, because right now it's a little chillier, but that air circulation is very important. But I think along the way, we learned a lot about how we can make ventilation work in our classrooms for the better. And we'll continue to improve that. And I know that as we look at Measure D and the facilities improvement programs, that's going to take a big key role in that. And the lessons that we learned there are going to help shape the projects that we plan. Also, what we found very helpful and useful and workable was the testing program for students, especially those who participate indoor. It worked very well for us. And I think it also keyed in general, what are ways that we can increase the hygiene for our student athletes indoors and outdoors. So found that worked well. In the area of technology, this could be 20 slides. It's just so much work happening there. Kudos to the entire tech team in general, and certainly right now as the follow-up work with our interim director, Raymond. You can see here pretty much what's happening. I don't typically like to read bullets, but I'll do that in this case. Virtual options for staff meeting was very effective, continues to be effective. I think there are still lots of staff members who do continue to click on a Google link to get together and talk a little bit about what's happening, which is wonderful. I know that we have parents that are asking for as much option as possible in that regards. Remote meetings and conferences for parents who can't make it onto campus is a keeper. Whether it's an IEP, whether it's parent conferences, the opportunity to be able to meet with a parent on a platform that we now know works and then we know how to use it is giving parents a better opportunity to be there, especially those parents that we know who work 2 jobs. They're working 18, 19, 20 hours a day. They're at least given an opportunity to be able to meet. The use of Google Docs has been really great, and we'll continue to enhance how that plays out in our classrooms. Parent-teacher meetings online, again, very effective and helpful and collaborative. The digitalized curriculum, I think we're going to continue to keep working and enhancing that piece of it. It's been very good for us. And I know that Director Silva is rubbing her hands in excitement. I can just tell as we continue to look at what possibilities are out there, and we'll continue to look at that. And then, of course, the options for the board meeting, having that available has been wonderful. And as we see, we had a lot more participation by our community in that, and we'll continue to use this and enhance this in every way possible. Teaching and learning, regular and more frequent check-ins with students. That remote check-in has been great, and I know that we have parents and our counselors and other staff who have still been able to check in with families to see how they're doing, and that's been enhanced and made possible by the work that we do remotely. There was a commentary that during the COVID time, we were trying very hard to provide more opportunities for students, especially as we see that students coming back and they're thirsty for that interaction, creating more activities, more clubs, more opportunities for students to engage and work together. It's just really, we saw different ways to design and work with that, and we want to continue that. Social emotional support programs, this probably should be in like major, massive font. I think this has been a focal point, will continue to be a focal point as we look at ways to provide support for our student. Our counselors have just been, Sanda's here in the back of the room, just amazing work that you've all done, just remarkable. And we want to continue to provide that kind of support for our students in enhanced ways, and we learned a lot there. The credit recovery programs that we are now able to offer during the regular school year for our secondary high school students has been lessons learned, and that's been great because we're making more successful students and more opportunities. The Edmentum program for course recovery is an example of that. And then I think at the high school in particular, looking at the academic intervention programs that we are now able to put in place because of the things that we learned. The TOSAs are a perfect example of what came out of that COVID time, where we knew that we had to focus on specific interventions for our students. Very excited as we continue to develop the intervention assistance at the elementary school. Kudos to the academic intervention teachers who just rock it. They're amazing what they do, looking to provide more support for them. And I think that those were lessons that we also were able to engage in. And I don't know if that's the last one or not, but my screen is frozen. So if that's the case, nope, there it goes. Communication. As you see there, the digital communication to their parents and our community. We really focused on this one last year to try to provide as much update as we could for our families. The COVID report that we have here is an example. The weekly break, the snapshot, the site newsletters, the district newsletter. We really trying to push out as much communication as we can. In fact, to the point where I think some of the complaints that we were getting were, you're giving us too much, back off. So trying now to figure out, okay, we have all of these venues that we're trying to take an opportunity of, how do we now really take a step back and consolidate a little bit and make it a little bit more streamlined. So that's a good problem. But we learned a lot about that communication as we were proceeding. The lunch recess, both elementaries, as you go during the recess and lunchtime, the staff have been remarkable in providing activities, very structured play. The playgrounds are a lot more calm right now than they've ever been in years past. And part of that is by design. I think it's just because of the structure that exists out there. It's not so much a chaotic, just free for all. It really is a lot more focus. And I think as we do try to, like, for example, at Forest Grove, where they are grade level cohorts at the different tiered levels, similar at Robert Down, we are doing our best to try to provide as much cohorting, but at the same time, we know we need to give as many opportunities we can for students in a very structured way. We're learning a lot there, continue to learn, and having more adults on the playground has been helpful, hiring more supervision. I think one of the pieces that we learned for our elementary principals in particular, when we provided support near the end of the COVID year, in the form of an interim vice principal, was can you help us by providing more yard supervision so that the principal can let go of that a little bit and be able to tend to the other duties that are there. So our human resources department has been working very hard to help do that. I do want to note, I don't know if it was a lesson learned, but it's a onerous burden. Our HR human resources department, under the leadership of Director Mankey, has been doing phenomenal work under really very, very difficult conditions. It's just been very hard to hire people. Bus drivers, for example, very, very hard to find. The hiring atmosphere and environment out there is not easy. And so sometimes when we see positions that are open for a long time, it's not because we aren't trying, it's simply because we just don't have the people out there that are applying. And when we have people applying, they're not a match necessary for the skills that we're looking for in the district. And so we'll continue to wrangle with that challenge of hiring in an environment that doesn't necessarily help us, but we'll continue to do what we can to make that work. This one I put in was a portion that the staff talked a little bit about early on in the year, just about, as we come out of COVID and we're coming into our students on our campus, what are some of the things we really want to make sure we focus on for our kids? Aside from just some of the environment, the educational pieces, and these just make sense, right? We want our students to feel safe. We want them to be at school, to be supported at school, to find fun ways to engage with each other in safe ways, reinitiate the ability to interact as peers, just to be able to resolve conflict because they were gone for 18 months. Sometimes that wasn't a way for them to learn about, to be supported, to allay their fears. And I think more than anything, to create that sense of belonging. And I think that our teachers in particular in the classrooms have just done a phenomenal job. I use that term a lot, but I don't use it lightly. They've just done an incredible job. And in the support, obviously, with the support staff and everyone else. So you can be assured, board, that our staff is doing wonderful work. So I think that's the last slide. I will now end it there and open it up to the board to engage this dialogue.
Well, thank you very much for that. I want to get this one thought out of my head right away, just especially while it's still up on the screen too. And I don't want to forget about it. I know that everybody's been so focused on taking care of the students, and I think they all have done a really remarkable job and so difficult, but don't forget about each other too, because it's been so hard. And especially before we were all had the opportunity to be in the same room together, even harder, but it's like we have to take care of each other too, the adults in the room. And I think a lot of us could every once in a while just need somebody to talk to or take a walk. And so let's not forget about each other. And I might have a few other thoughts as we go through this, but let's go to Dr. Rivera.
Thank you. I agree. We need to also take care of ourselves, and teachers, I hope you're taking care of yourselves. We're not through this yet. We're still working our way through. Two things that I will miss, I don't think we can get a hold of back is, I'm sure that our faculty will miss those Mondays where they have the full day to prepare. And I know that we can't. That's one of those things that we can't hold on to. And as a parent, I missed the 10-minute quick check-in with my son's instructor. Every Friday we had these, and there were more than just a check-in on my son's academic performance. It was a check-in on his social emotional. It was a check-in on my social emotional. How are you doing? When you're doing the asynchronous sessions, are you okay? Could we support you in any other ways? So again, one of those things that I don't think we can recover. I don't think we have the bandwidth to, but I just wanted to highlight that those were two wonderful things that both the faculty, I'm sure, appreciated. And then the latter was certainly something the parents appreciated. Thank you for this update. I agree with you. Every bullet point had so much in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Carolyn?
Thanks, Brian. I would love to hear if any teacher or staff member is on tonight and wants to add to this. This is such important information for us to hear. And I appreciate that Ralph put it all together in that presentation. And there's so much more to these slides for sure. So it's more of a jumping off point, I think, for kind of our lessons learned, because really the ultimate goal is to hear about the lessons learned and then hang on to the things that we can keep for our district. So I'm going to keep talking, but hopefully any teacher or staff member who wants to contribute, I would love to have you raise your hand and hear from you. And because one of my biggest questions is how can we continue to support our staff who are in the classrooms at the ground level working with our kids on a day-to-day basis. It's still COVID, right? So we are still, I'm still very wanting to hear how we can support you all. And I'm curious if any of the things learned, Ralph, I'm curious if any of them in your mind warrants new policies coming forward, if there's anything that we can put into policy that would kind of solidify some of these things that keep them rolling year after year, you know, codify those. And one thing that I was hearing that might be something, so Ralph, I'd like your opinion on it, is perhaps it's time for our district to have a short and a long-term communication plan. I know you guys, you know, you really put out a lot of effort sending out communications, and I think it's a great start. And so to kind of put that together into a plan, I could see there being a lot of benefit in that. So those are my comments and questions. If you don't mind humoring me and answering them, Ralph.
Of course, I can give you what I have. Idea of a communication plan sounds wonderful, and we kind of have thought a little bit about that. And just you know, sometimes you wait for things for a lull, but I don't think any lulls are coming. So we'll continue to take that to heart, and I think it's a great idea. Policies, nothing jumps out immediately because most of this are just part of the work that we do in the instructional program and facilities as well as we look at Measure D. So perhaps through Measure D, there will be some of that would come out to play for sure. I'll take a look at that. That's a great question. Nothing would jumped out at me that was a policy shift. If anything, the only thing that I could think of perhaps would be really more of a personnel shift in regards to, do we at some point in time want to retain TOSAs knowing that the funding does eventually go away, and that's a big commitment. You know, the assistance at the elementary sites, the resolution thus far is regards to additional yard supervision, but do we want to take a look at, is there a different way of doing that? And I think our elementary principals would be the ones to answer that. Perhaps the policy one would be, do we want to do something different in regards to the way that the sites collaborate with each other? Probably more particularly with the elementary schools, because we did see that the two elementaries, when the collaboration was essential, it really was very robust. And I know we've talked in the past about, are there ways that we can shape the way that our schools are structured to offer a greater collaboration between grade levels? So that's something perhaps that the board might want to think about. And certainly lessons learned over COVID time, that certainly stands out. The other piece I would add, if I may, Mr. President, I failed to mention this earlier, was we do have our site principals here. So if you have an interest in them adding or answering any specific questions, I prepped them ahead of time that may come. So just want to let you know that it's there.
Sure. And I have a couple of comments too, but I don't want to go until Trustee Carolyn is through. So I'm looking up at the screen like I'm making eye contact, which I know I'm not, but I don't know where I look.
I wish I could see that close. You guys are kind of zoomed out. Yeah, I can barely tell what color shirt you have on. But thank you, Brian, for coming back to me. So yeah, the TOSA expiration, I would love to look into that. That's definitely a budget item, so I'm sure Song is listening. And as far as assistance for the elementary school principals, I could see that being very beneficial. But like I said, I'm a board member, so anyone on the ground level, if the principals would like to speak to that, I am so open to hearing about that. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Trustee Carolyn. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about and that everybody got really good at was adapting. I mean, I think in the very early days, it was just every change is like, oh my God, I can't believe that, you know, this now and then that. And then over the course of a year, everybody got really good. pivot became the key word, right? It's just like everybody's pivoting constantly, but everybody got really good at it too. And seeing what Billy's dealing with on just trying to hire people, and you hear it in the news all the time. It's like, the story I heard today was they're fearful about the holiday rush because they don't have people. They can't hire anybody. They're just not out there anymore. How do we deal with that? And I get the job alerts. I've got a Google alert on PGUSD job openings. So I see as they come through, and it's like, I know the struggle that you're facing. The struggle is real. But when you talk about collaboration, Dr. Porus too, between the elementary schools, that I thought was really remarkable because they're just such great schools, and they have very, very unique things to offer. I would love for us to find a way for every student in our district to experience Robert Down, and every student in our district to experience Forest Grove. And I would love for us to talk about that as a board. How do we do that? I mean, what I'm suggesting we talk about. And I think it's time that we have that conversation. So I would love to open it up to public comment and see what other people have to say about it, or staff comment for that matter. And whether it's related to that or other things in the struggle that we faced over the last year and a half.
Good morning, board. It's always morning in Pacific Grove.
It's not,
right?
the meeting has not been that long.
You know what, first of all, I just want to make myself available as, someone to field some questions from the site level. If anybody has any questions for us specifically. I think with regard to the question that was specifically related to assistance for site, administrators, I would like to see us address all of the classroom needs, first. I think that's the most important and the closest to the students. That I think that Mr. Keller and I will be able to make do, even as we get stretched and we get asked to do a little bit more now too. But first and foremost, I would love to see, that I think that one of the things that is really helpful at our site right now is this movement to try to bring some more, instructional aids and in instructional aid time to not only serve the students in the gen ed setting, but in the intervention gen ed setting too. I don't think that it's ever going to go away, the need to have some additional staff available to provide more intensive small group instruction for the students that need it the most. And so I think that that's probably where a great focus can be in terms of the academic support. I think that one of the things that was on that list that's been maybe the hardest to do this year is to find some ways to have fun, that we get so engrossed in the job that we're doing and we all take it so seriously that we need to remember to step back and just enjoy being with each other and realize what a gift it is for us to be able to come into school every single day when we had that gift taken away from us for 18 months. I think that as far as the lunchtime processes go, I think that one of the things that's calmed the playgrounds down the most is spreading the children out. That when we would do lunchtime before, we would only have a single activity up on the third level. And so that pushed all of the other students into 2 levels and they could play anywhere they wanted. Whereas this just directs them a little bit. And not only that, but it's, kind of pushed our staff to make an effort to introduce other kinds of games and activities that are more cooperative in nature and less competitive in nature. And we think that the students are really going to start to enjoy those kinds of games too. So we're working with our PE teachers to teach the students some of these other games. And then we're looking for more volunteers that can come and help us out at lunchtime so that they can run those, activities with our students. But I just wanted to be available for anyone that might have questions, especially with regard to the elementary level. As far as working together, I think that one of the reasons why it worked so well last year is because we were forced to do it, right? It was kind of a survival mode for us that we needed to lean on each other. at Forest Grove and Robert Down. And because we were dependent on each other for the success of our children, you know, I think that we discovered that there's amazing qualities on the staffs at both schools. And Trustee Swanson, I understand exactly what you're saying, that I know that having my own daughter go through school, I would have loved for her to have the chance to experience Forest Grove, even though she had the amazing experience that she had at Robert Down. It would be great for our students to go through and wind up being, you know, an otter, a falcon, a junior breaker, and a breaker. So who knows, you know, that it'll take a lot of work and a lot of time, but I could see the benefit of moving in that direction as well.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Buck.
I have a question for Buck. Oh, sorry. Who that was.
Yes, Trustee Carolyn.
Hey, Buck, when you say you could see value in an increase of staffing in the classrooms, especially with instructional aides, can you give us kind of an idea of how many?
Oh, right now, I'm talking more about trying to maintain maybe the plan that we have now going forward into the years, and maybe trying to carve out a plan so that when the COVID funding runs out, that we can retain some of the expanded hours. And I'm looking right at Song because I know that everything has a price tag that is attached to it. But I think that if we want to run a robust intervention program and serve our students that need it the most, that's where resources are always really well spent. So no, I don't have a number.
Okay.
Right now, we have 7 that were budgeted for through the ESSER funding. And I don't know that we've hired very many people to take those spots just because they're not available. It is a struggle that we still have 3 noon supervision spots that are open that we haven't filled.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
You're up, Sean.
Evening, Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School, and I'm going to speak a little bit more globally in regards to what Dr. Porus relayed. I think there was quite a bit of good that came out of COVID learning. I think it really gave us the opportunity to strengthen many of our existing systems that we have and rely more on them than we normally would. Our professional learning communities, which look at data, our students of concern, which really became a bi-monthly event for us because of all the anxiety and frustration that we had with our students last year, really strengthened those systems and really made the staff, allowed the staff to buy in because we know that it's necessary. And we're saying that it's necessary right now. And it really allows us to kind of hone in on that too. Another thing it does is it allows us more globally to challenge the status quo. The dreaded words past practice, which I can't stand. It allows us to innovate and to change and to take what is new and use that and discard what is not working in the system. And I think last year allowed us to do that, take a real good look at things. I think the biggest thing for PGMS is it allowed us to be vulnerable and really kind of show ourselves to each other because of necessity, because we had a difficult time. And so people began to rely on one another where formerly they might not have. And it really kind of brought us closer together as a staff. I think we rely upon one another far more than we ever have in the past. And I think that kind of leads to innovation, but it's also that trust. I mean, teaching you guys is, when I first started teaching, it was closed doors. You don't see anybody in between. Now we have people going to other classrooms and saying, why did this work for you and not for me? And those are the kind of conversations that that allow education to evolve with the times rather than staying with the status quo. So I think a lot of good came from this. I hate the term lost year. I think a lot of learning occurred. I think a lot of good teaching occurred. And I'm damn proud of what we did last year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Licho Garcia, proud principal, Pacific Grove High School and Community High School. I didn't know we were going to date ourselves with when we started teaching, but it was my second year of teaching that I received new technology in my classroom. I got a telephone. True story. I do want to acknowledge the amazing staff at both of my schools, both the classified and the certificated, over this last year and a half. They are a truly dedicated group of people. They are team players, and using these words, hard workers, it's not enough. It needs to be capitalized. It needs to be in multiple colors. It needs to just shout out how hard each and every one of them has worked and continues to work. And to your point, Brian, is, in regards to taking care of themselves, I talk to them about that all the time. It is so important because I know how much they are giving, not just in the 7 hours, 8 hours that they were on campus, but 5, 6, 7 hours, 8 hours, weekends, vacation time. And I try to remind them to make time for themselves as well. And so I am very proud to be a leader of some amazing group of people. To some of the things that we've listed earlier, just to stress the importance, the TOSA position, tremendous value. One, because I have Dr. Larry Hadquist in that position, but two, I know the value of this position, having had multiple years in my previous district, having a TOSA work with me directly on my site. So I see the value of it, and I can see the value of it for many, many years to come in supporting our students, but also in support of our certificated staff. Social emotional piece. We've been talking about this for students for many, many years prior to COVID. COVID just enhanced and put a spotlight on the need to support our students. And I have to my left here, Lupita, who herself has taken this on in her role as a leader on our campus and part of the leadership team. She helped to spearhead a week where we put, or students put messages of affirmation all across the campus. And she brought information through our daily bulletin. And it is a passion of hers. She sees the need for our students to receive this support. And so it's not just the staff, but it's our student leaders as well that see this is important for everybody who works at schools. So thank you, Lupita. And then finally, we continue to adjust to meet the instructional needs of our students. We see the impact that distance learning has had on our students, and we see that we need each and every day, each and every week, to adjust to meet them where they are, academically and socially, emotionally. Thank you.
Thank you. And your name came up the other day. I don't know if your ears were burning or not, but we were thinking about, your challenge in particular too. It's like you came in here. I don't think I saw your actual face until we finally got the whole Zoom board meeting things going. I didn't really even know what you looked like. So to come into a new community and then into all of this, thank you for everything that you brought to it. Really, it's appreciated, I'm sure, by everybody in this room and everybody in this community.
I do want to say this. The first thing that Dr. Porus said to me when I met him in person was, "You're a lot taller than I thought you would be." I have to work on my Zoom angle, I think. But thank you for that. And something that I've been saying for quite some time now since I arrived is that my wife and I, throughout last school year, as tough as it was, neither one of us looked at each other and said, "What did we do?" We actually looked at each other and said, we made the right choice for ourselves personally and professionally. This is an amazing district and I'm proud to be a part of it. So thank you for those kind words.
Lupita, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, just first and only for a second. But if there's anything that you want to add to it, you have a unique perspective as a student in this district, and I know you've contributed a tremendous amount along with your team and your cohort as well. But I'm wondering if there's anything in particular you wanted to share about where you were when this started and where you are now and where you think it's going. Yeah.
You can turn the neck of the microphone down a little bit.
Yeah, so obviously COVID was like really hard for like a lot of us, and it was very like lonely. But I think the teachers like through like COVID like really like sorry like let us know that like they were there and they were very supportive, and that like I am very grateful for. And yeah, being back on campus is like so good. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other public comment or staff comment? Oh, okay.
Hi, good evening, board and community. Sean Keller, proud principal at Robert Down Elementary School. My apologies for not being there tonight. I just found that I was having some breathing difficulties last time when I was in person wearing a mask. So I've been working on my lungs, and hopefully I'll be able to show up next time. But I did want to piggyback on Principal Rogaman's comments. And first off, I wanted to just state that technology-wise, I want to thank the district for initiating the use of Cami. It was kind of weird for me to use that software because my sister's name actually is Cami. So that was kind of weird. But I found it to be an excellent annotative tool in our district paperwork. And I found it to be very helpful in the times of COVID when someone is out and we need a signature, and we can get a signature off campus. So it's been very, very helpful on my site. So thank you for that. I've also found that the use of Seesaw in Google Classroom has really increased. And I know that parents really appreciated, especially Seesaw, in the sense that they had a connection with their students in the classroom when kids made videos of themselves and videos of their work and were able to explain it. And I know parents let me know last year that they really appreciated the use of Seesaw. So thank you for continuing that, PG Tech. In the sense of recess and lunch, I agree with Superintendent Porus 100%. It is definitely calmer. And I really do appreciate the rotations that we're having with grade level cohorts this year. I will plead to our community that both myself and Mr. Rogaman, as he mentioned, still need more lunchtime personnel. So please, if you do have the time, please apply for the positions both at Forest Grove and at Robert Down. But in that sense of recess and lunch, I know that for myself, and I've seen it with many other staff members, we've become a little bit more softer in how we deal with discipline issues on campus. And I really love how we're emphasizing the toolbox and helping kids build their toolbox when we have issues on campus. A different issue is the use of single desks. We'll be continuing that, I think, from now on. I don't think we'll have any double desks or large tables in the classroom. That's just something that I believe Mr. Kelly is emphasizing at all of our sites. And I do want to send out appreciation to all of our families at Robert Down. Before COVID, many families would want to come on to campus and have their kids play before school and after school on all of our structures. And I really appreciate our families staying off campus to maintain the safety and the well-being of our students. I really do appreciate that. One last thing, one thing I think that was unforeseen in all of this was the purchasing of our digital network of radios. Unfortunately, when we first purchased our digital radios from our vendor, they worked with our old Motorola radios. And I assumed that when I gave my order for the new radios that they would continue to work. I'm not a techie, and I didn't realize that once we went digital as a district, those analog radios were just non-usable. So That is an issue I do want to bring to the board. We do need to buy more radios, especially at Robert Down, because most of my teachers had them in their classrooms before. And all the radios that I purchased have been dispersed to all the different individuals that I felt necessary should have them. So it is something that I feel like we do need to tackle as a district. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Mr. Tavani, I think, had his hand raised as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Tavani, Assistant Principal at Pacific Grove Middle School. When I think about like the educational gains from COVID in terms of what we found useful, Google Classroom really, and Mr. Keller just kind of stole this thunder, but Google Classroom was really one of those things that I think we all really committed to. Early on, we took some time to align some practices, to make some kind of expectations for ourselves as a staff in terms of how we were going to use various parts of Google Classroom, things we weren't going to do on Google Classroom. We came up with common ways of naming assignments and things like that, so that it was easy for a student to find assignments or turn in assignments, or easy for a teacher to get assignments into a grade book. And so that early work, I mean, this is way back in March, I think still continues today, in that we've got systems in place that make school accessible to our students, whether they're in the classroom with us. We do use Google Classroom like in the real classroom, so like Classroom Squared. But when a student is ill or in quarantine or something, really most of their classroom and most of what they need is really, you know, a few clicks away. And that's something that I think would have taken us much longer to get to, that type of alignment and consistency and reliability. But because of the pandemic, we were forced in a way to do that work. And I think that it's paying off now. You know, when students are out, that's our way of communicating with them. So that's a big one. And then, you know, the elementaries mentioned the toolbox, and for us, that's our character program, Character Strong. And it's not that that's a new practice that we developed because of the pandemic, but I think that it's one that all of our staff, probably a lot of our students, and I know many of our families value differently now, value more now, because they've recognized that it's a little part of a solution to problems caused by the pandemic. So we're happy to have had it in place at the time. We've kind of elevated our use and our commitment to it, and we hope that it's doing what we want it to do for students. And we're getting a little bit of feedback about that as we go, and there'll be more to come. So we look forward to sharing all that. But those are my pieces for COVID keepers. Thank you.
Thank you for the insight in your comments. And I think we're moving to Ani Silva now.
Hello, me again. I'm not on mute. Okay. I just want to say that as an educator whose passion is teaching and learning, I have to say that really it was all hands on deck. I think that our classified staff, were instrumental. Instructional aides were instrumental to the support of our students. I believe that our teachers working with our instructor, our teachers are phenomenal. That goes without saying, and they, they really, created a system of support, not just support by way of instruction, but support socially and emotionally for our students. And our instructional aides did the same. I think one of the most positive things that has come out of COVID is the fact that we are focusing on social and emotional learning. I think it's always been important, and COVID has kind of brought that up to the surface. But it's something that we're not going to let go of. I believe we shouldn't. I believe we should continue our work in that vein. And I also want to point out that our administrators are amazing, because they, without their leadership, none of this would be happening. Everyone really has pulled it together, all hands on deck. I am so proud to work with such an amazing team of administrators, to be a part of an amazing district. Our teachers, our classified staff, or just everybody, everybody, all people in our district are just phenomenal. And I think a big applause goes to all, and to the board for your support as well, because, you know, we're all in this together. And so I'm very pleased to see that we're looking forward to the future, and using what growth mindset. That's what it's all about. You know, I mean, we live and learn. And so I just wanted to just say that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ani. No, you're spot on, right? And everybody, you know, from the community on up to admin and the students and teachers and staff and everyone. It's like, and one of the things I learned either through this or through the work that I do too, is that the only way to get through it is to get through it together. And the people on my professional side, those relationships are stronger than ever. The people that would work with me to get through the issues, and boy, did we have some issues, you know, so thank you for those comments. Do we have anybody else, members of the, please come on up.
Sonda Ferdin, school counselor at Robert Down and the middle school. I didn't intend to talk, but reflecting on the social emotional piece, since COVID, I really couldn't see how things were changing when we were in it. But now that we're back in class, I can really see the social emotional shift in our students. And the thing that I noticed the most this year was just how vulnerable all the kids are in a good way. And I think that I've had more fifth grade boys talking very deeply and emotionally in my room than I ever have before. You know, you have to remember they're coming in after a year and a half. So they're almost like at that third grade point emotionally, and they're talking about things that third grade boys talk about, but not typically fifth grade. And I hope it's a trend for them throughout their young life that they are able to hold on to that openness, emotional openness. And so I've seen it across the board. And I know in talking with the counselors, we collaborate every week, and we are seeing a lot of the same things. And I think that's really positive. Zoe and I are going into all the classes every other week. So we're hitting every classroom and doing our lessons. And I think that has had a tremendous impact on the way our children talk about feelings and emotions and express themselves. And so those are things that I think we're doing that are transformative with our students. But I'm really impressed by our students and how open they are. And when I go into the class, it's just kind of it's just made me so much I don't know, being kind of mid-career, I being in the classroom and being at the middle school has really shaped the way I'm seeing the work that we're doing and the value in it. And I hope it continues. And I thank everyone for always supporting our mental health, because I never want to see any kid fall through the cracks and not get noticed for their emotional needs. And I think we do a really good job at catching them and giving them, or reaching out and doing the outreach. And for me, that's always in the back of my mind, you know, how we can continue to see them through their school years and make school a place that's safe and wonderful for them so that they can have bright futures. So I think we do a great job at that. And I hope we can continue. So thank you.
Thank you. You do a great job. Frank?
I just want to say thank you for everyone for focusing in or mentioning a little bit about the social emotional needs of our children as they go back, as they've been back in our own campus. This is something that's huge. Part of our education is the academics, the math, the science, the reading, but part of the education is also the social emotional development that we didn't get. I didn't get as a child growing up. And it's obvious when you talk to people my age sometimes, like, hey, you're not using your patience tool, you know. But I feel blessed because I'm getting this education now through my son, who's in elementary age. And as he's going through and studying and learning about how to use his toolbox, he shows me how to use the toolbox. And like I said, I admit that I'm learning from that. So I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for keeping that in your focus, and please continue to do that, because that will just make our world a better place as they grow old and they carry these lessons on.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody else? All right, so one tiny little thought, because I know we've gone on for this for a while, but I don't think it was a wasted time at all. And like Sean said too, and not a wasted year at all. You know, when we first had this on the agenda, I didn't really know what to expect from this. I'm really glad that we did this. Thank you for your presentation. And I think it was a bit of a therapy session for everybody here tonight too. So again, we're all in this together, and thanks to everybody for pulling together, because that is how we're getting through it, is together. So with that said, we're going to move on. I think there's one final item up for bid, which is item C, future agenda. Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
How's everybody today? Barbara Martinez, safety. Before I go do the safety report, the quarterly safety report, first quarter, I was just sitting there reflecting on everybody's testimony. And, you know, sometimes it's really easy to get down, and there's so many negators out there that's saying, you know, all of the negative things out of this, but everybody was just so positive. And I feel like I just kind of came out of church. And I just want to just say my reflection is that I think about community high school's logo, and I think about embracing change, embracing it instead of, you know, overcoming, right? It's not really about overcoming. You first have to embrace it and walk through it, just like you say. And if you want to get through to the other side, you've got to walk through it and experience it and reflect on it and come together with like minds. And truly, I'm just really proud to be a part of this PGUSD family and the community and the families and the services that we provide our children. So with that being said, I'm going to give our first quarter safety report. And I've only got two items. The first item being, we participated today in the Great American Shakeout. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about it. Shakeout drills are annual opportunities to learn and practice our earthquake safety protocols with millions of people worldwide. And each year, the Shakeout participants are of schools, businesses, nonprofits, government agencies, neighbors, organizations, households. We all practice our drop, cover, and hold on protocol. And so today, all PG schools participated in the Shakeout. Students and staff practiced our Big Five, drop, cover, and hold on safety protocol, and sites reported their outcomes to the district office, who then shared it with the Emergency Operations Center at MCOE. And it's important that we practice our protocols so that they become innate, so that if in case something truly does happen, we have our incident command centers already in place. So the districts, the sites have their plans and process. We communicate our plans and our outcomes with the district office, who then communicate with the county and then to the state. So we all have a streamline. Some interesting facts. 7.5 million participants statewide today participated, 1045. 4.8 million K-12 children and staff participated today. And just in Monterey County, 110,000 participated today and practiced. So with that being said, I want to congratulate our sites and our administrators and our students and our staff for all participating in that. Manny, could you share, I have some other opportunities for safety trainings coming up. I had the privilege of attending the State Emergency Management System and the National Incident Command Center training this past week. It's important that we consistently participate in these trainings so that we become current with new legislation, new mandates to our safety plans, and that we practice them. We've got some more opportunities to attend some safety trainings and situational awareness, which is really key to knowing where you are and your surroundings. Disarming dialogue, how to de-escalate aggressive behavior, and active crisis response training, including protecting students with disabilities. And all of these safety trainings are open to all of our site administrators, as well as our site safety team, and even yourself. If you'd like to attend, just let me know, and we'd love to have you. It's at MCOE, it's cost effective, and really does add to our site safety plans. So thank you, that's my update.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Rivera, any comments?
Nope, thank you for the update.
Sure.
And Trustee Carolyn?
I like that update. Thank you. And this may not fall under Barbara, but I'm going to ask it and you guys can guide me if not. So I just wanted a little tiny update on crosswalks and crossing guards. Like, are they fully staffed? Are we at 100%? And who kind of owns that position to make sure that, you know, if a crossing guard can't make it, that there's a replacement?
I could start. In the beginning of the year, we went through a heck of a process in trying to acquire some crossing guards, and we've had some great volunteers. And through the process, we've hired two for the high school. No, let's see, two for the high school and one for Robert Down. So they report to the high school in the morning. One for it, I believe they hired one for the Five Corners and one for is it 17th Street? And then we have one at Robert Down. And so if they are to be absent, they are under the direct supervision of that school administration.
Oh, okay. I see. And so we have a crossing guard hired for the Five Corners, 19th Street and Robert Down. So we have 3 crossing guards in the mornings and afternoons. Okay.
At different shifts, there's different, they follow the schedule that was sent out in that Google Drive that you have.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so so crossing guard is kind of like we can check that off of the list, it sounds like, for this year. That sounds pretty well covered. Is that right?
I think we can continuously monitor
Okay.
the need and assess throughout the year what our needs are.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update.
And any public comment? Anybody? Nobody on the Zoom? Okay, Barbara, thank you so much. Again, sorry for almost skipping over you. But I think that your report really demonstrated too just how much is going on when it comes to keeping the district safe. You know, it's the crosswalks, and I know rain is coming up, and I know that you're thinking about rain and what happens with that, and you know, de-escalating conversations and earthquakes, and you probably think about tsunamis every once in a while. It's like all of that stuff. It's impressive. There's a lot to keep track of. So thank you for the report, and thank you for always being on top of it.
Love safety.
So that said, item C, future agenda items.
I believe Trustee Carolyn had wanted to identify some dates for the last 2 items. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah. Which were they that we were talking about?
Sample
Which items?
agenda formats, and then the media relations / general correspondence / public comment. And we're working with both of those. We're working with legal counsel right now. Sarah Kotz, who was here during the special meeting. These were the 2 items that came from that meeting, and we're still trying to kind of wrap our minds around and follow up on that, but we're in process.
Is there a safe time, you know, where you think we could throw it on there where you can assume that it'll be ready by then, or do you still need a little bit more time?
You know what? I'm not altogether certain at this moment, but I can talk with Sarah Kotz, and maybe at our next meeting, which is a week away, we can get some more dates. The sample agenda format is not that difficult. Just simply seeking out some sample agendas. Might be able to have that certainly for the organizational meeting in December, which may be an appropriate time. But if you give me a little time, I can follow up with Sarah.
Trustee Swanson, are you cool to hang for another week at least to find a place to place those?
Yeah, absolutely. I was more just asking, not necessarily to rush it, but just to kind of know, like, okay, is this going to be spring kind of thing? So really, I'm okay with it being in the spring. I was just kind of curious, like, what month it was going to kind of fall in. So no rush on that, Ralph, in my opinion.
Okay, and Dr. Rivera, do you have anything that you'd like to place as a future agenda item?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. I know I don't want to throw it on next week or the week after, but at some point I would like to have a discussion about the two elementary schools and how we can reorganize things and so that our students can get to see what's so great and experience Forest Grove and experience Robert Down in some way. Again, I don't know where exactly we put that. I know that's a big discussion item. I don't want to get too deep into it without Trustee Paff or Trustee Dawson, but I would like to have a discussion about that.
Perhaps we can just regroup on that discussion next week, just briefly, and ask them where they might like to see that.
That'll work for me. And any public comment on future agenda items? Seeing none?
Sorry, Brian.
Carolyn, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. And if the public has something, feel free to ask them again after I'm done. Sorry to kind of interrupt there. But I do have a couple of things. So perhaps that we would want to add. So I heard us talk tonight about, actually, maybe we didn't, maybe I just thought we talked about it. Sorry, policy. I was thinking about policy related to what we learned in COVID. And I wonder if there is an opportunity for us to create some policy regarding virtual meetings. I know that we have policy regarding retaining, we kind of have it for the board meetings, but I think it would benefit our entire district if we set forth policy to have site council meetings be available virtually, parent-teacher conferences available virtually, ongoing, and that might be something that we want to place in policy because I think that creates and enhances access for so many of our families. The other thing is, you know, Ralph, I was looking at the schedule and can you help me out? I thought that we had an annual food service department type of update, but I don't see it on here. So is that something we do annually or just as needed?
It's as needed. I think last year we saw more of it because there was just so much going on with COVID.
Okay.
So I think it's just as needed. We can ask Director Lip if there's a opportunity, but right now there's nothing directly slated.
Okay, I've got a specific question then for food service and you can guide me if it warrants an entire report or whatever. But I am so curious to have a student survey go out to specifically related to food service, their experience, their feeling about the food. I think that would be phenomenal, especially right now, how we're providing breakfast and lunch to them. It's a real opportunity, I think, to kind of gauge that. And I'd be so interested in that report. So, so that's something that I'm thinking about. And then I'm not sure if this is something we can add to our website, but I've been thinking a lot about the California Voters' Rights Act and what that means for our community. And especially I'm thinking about first-time candidates, people who might be on the fence about running, people who maybe have never had anyone in their family or in their friend group run for office. And I think it could be beneficial to have a resources tab for potential candidates, perhaps on our website. So we're not generating the content, but it's kind of a resource landing page. So and just to be clear, it's not a CVRA related, it's resources that we're saying, hey, we know there's going to be possibly new folks looking at running that maybe weren't before, and this is how we would like to support you. Well, that's what I was kind of thinking about.
Just to that end, I know that we have, we've already spoken with CSBA, who's putting together some video opportunities and online resources for parents to learn more about how boards operate. Is that it's on the docket and we're working on that? Is that something that you're thinking? Is that
That's a different topic in my opinion, a very valid and important topic, but this would be more for folks in our community wanting to run for school board trustee.
I think I may need to get you to describe that a little bit more for me. If you want to send me an email with some thoughts and some pros, I can kind of work through what that might look like.
Absolutely, no problem. And then the last thing I had on my list was I find so much value in having our student board rep, although I don't see her in the screen right now, but And I know that we have 2 high schools, and so I would really like to take a serious look at having a high school rep from PG High as well as a high school rep from Community High on our board.
That's certainly a board can entertain that as part of the board, but the 9,000. So
I'd love to talk about that.
Okay, and that's it. Thank you for listening to all of those things. Thank you.
Dr. Rivera, you have something?
Yeah, did I hear correct that Principal Keller said his radios no longer work or they will not work soon when we make that switch?
I think the new ones are not compatible with the old ones. Is that? Yeah.
yeah, we can work on that from a staff level in terms of making sure that's correct.
So the goal is to this year was a test site for all essential.
We can't hear you.
Oh, yep. You got to get on the mic, Barbara. Sorry.
So in the beginning, the goal was just to have to set out a small amount of radios for each site so that the administrators could test them out with the goal of implementing them in phases throughout the site instead of one large chunk of sum of money. It was going to be going in phases. That was our goal.
Okay, so,
It still is.
okay, so right now, do the administrators have dependable, rapid communication?
Yes. Amongst all of our sites, where we didn't have that before. Now we can communicate with all of our sites and the district office.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Board members, anything further? Any other public comment hanging? All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.